So let's go ahead and continue and talk about some of the defensive ads for LSU. You mentioned Patrick Payton. Mansour Delane is another guy from Virginia Tech, the cornerback that I know LSU fans are very excited about what he can do for a defense that I think is continually trying to get better. What do you think he adds to that unit?
He has a proven cover guy that's done it in college for a long period of time. But even though he's covering everyone in the back end, LSU is an outstanding job of getting two edge players that can allow him not to sit there and cover for 5 seconds like we saw all last year once Harold Perkins got down. So you have a proven guy that can come in, veteran, understands how to play college football, and just talking to Mansour, just because I have a decent relationship with him, he wanted to get into the best conference, to play against the best players, to prove to the NFL that I am one of the best corners, if not the best corner in college football.
It's a good place to do it then. I think that's a pretty decent conference.
LSU could arguably go down and just say they are DBU. I know that I'm a Bama guy, but you track the history of cornerbacks, defensive backs from LSU. And you walk around and say,
you're
that's a
watching
great conversation.
NFL and some of the teams in the playoffs, you're going to see some LSU defensive backs taking advantage of that. Let's go back and talk about quarterbacks, just because I think we talked about the available quarterbacks, but not so much who's gone where. Miller Moss is somebody that comes to mind. He's the 7th-ranked quarterback in this class. We were just talking about cornerbacks. Transferring to Louisville. What do you think about that marriage between him and Jeff Brom? We've seen him have success with some of these older quarterbacks, experienced quarterbacks.
Love it.
Yeah.
Because Miller Moss, you go back and look at him at USC, why did he get benched? I'm still trying to figure out why. But with a great quarterback, you always need someone to unlock that quarterback. And I think Coach Brom's done it. He's a quarterback guy himself. His system is quarterback friendly. Mm-hmm. And you just see pieces starting to come over to Louisville. And you get pieces that come over with a quarterback coach, you're going to get someone to unlock that position. And with that, you're just trying to get in the playoffs. They were this close to getting in, one player away. And I think Miller Moss is that player that can get them over that hump to get them in the playoffs. They're probably one of my dark horses going into the season. I know everyone loves the quarterback play, but I'm going to jump on and say,
See, this is why I said this is the best time of year. We're talking about Louisville as a dark horse to a playoff team because of a move they made in the transfer portal. Not the only move they made. Jeff Brom has been incredibly active in the portal ever since he took over there.
But that's a significant one.
Yeah.
Quarterback, leader. Mm-hmm. He's not a game manager. He can change games just because he has enough mobility in the pocket and creativity. And he throws some beautiful balls. Just a little guy, just a little pocket rocket. Yeah. But those guys are playing well, too.
I love that now. No, it's strange to think that a guy could leave Lincoln Riley and be in a better position in terms of quarterback development. But it's what we're going to talk about all throughout the day. It's what we've already talked about, is that fit is so important. We have seen that proof of concept with Jeff Brom. Another connection in the ACC, Thomas Castellanos goes to Florida State. Florida State fans are really hoping that this one works out this time. What can you tell them about Castellanos?
You're getting a guy that wants to prove himself. Because when he was at Boston College, the same situation like Miller Moss. All he did was win games and improve yearly in terms of accuracy, passing efficiency, turnover to touchdown ratio. And he just got up there with Bill O'Brien. Bill O'Brien is not the guy that Thomas Castellanos' skill set says is going to fit in his system. But then when Gus comes in, that's Gus's guy. Mobile guy, efficient passer, can do everything that you want to in that single wing offense that Gus Malzahn likes to run. And then you see players starting to come in. Tall receivers, Squirrel is coming in, dynamic guy that you just get the ball in his hands. And just
Not a tall receiver.
Not a tall receiver, but dynamic guy.
Yes. Yeah.
That you can get the ball in his hands. And I think they got a 6'6" guy in there that he can throw some lob balls up into in terms of red zone production. So you're getting a guy that fits that system perfectly. Unlike the one they had before where they were hoping and wishing and saying, is he a guy? No, this is the guy that transcends programs. Because last time I checked, BC wasn't that good without Thomas Castellanos at quarterback.
Yeah. How about DD Holmes transferring to Maryland? I see you perk up. Got that smile.
He's one of the ones that bounced back.
Yeah.
Right? First runner-up was Coach Loxley in Maryland. At that time, I was the general manager, so I'm pretty close to that situation. And everything in DD said, go to Florida State. That was his father that passed. That was his favorite team. And I think inside of him, he wanted to go see what it was going to be like. He went down there, saw it. The year didn't turn out well. They lost the defensive line coach. And he and Brian Williams, Coach Loxley, and there's a Maryland guy. He's coming back home to get that thing going in Terpsville.
Terpsville. I don't know if I've heard that reference before. Well, hopefully he is somebody that can help them out in Terpsville. We're going to bring in Matt Zenitz because he has been all over everything that is happening in the transfer portal. And we've got Matt Zenitz here. Yeah, just to wrap up the wild window, we're going to tell some crazy stories later with our friend Chris Hummer. But I think you told Matt what I would consider the craziest story of the transfer portal, and that's just because I was very intrigued by this, and that is from John Mateer, the number one player in the transfer portal, ends up going to Oklahoma, but old Bill Belichick and UNC made quite the push. For those who have not heard the story of how this all turned out, walk us through what went into the recruitment of the number one portal player.
Well, first of all, I'm assuming that you're just jealous that you didn't get the FaceTime calls from the combination of Gronk and Tom Brady and the Bailey Zappies of the world and some of those former prominent Patriots players under Bill Belichick. But it was an interesting 48 hours, essentially, for John Mateer. So obviously, he was at Washington State, had a heck of a year there at Washington State, became the number one player in the portal once he made the decision to go in. And everyone assumed right away that was just a foregone conclusion, that it was going to end with him following his offensive coordinator from Washington State, Ben Arbuckle, to Oklahoma. But it became, as one source put it, a more wild 48 hours leading up to a decision than probably most people would have thought or realized. So you had schools, specifically Miami, North Carolina, that tried to make it difficult for Oklahoma to seal the deal on John Mateer. Miami, which is still in the market for a portal quarterback, was very aggressive, including financially, to try to entice John Mateer to make the move to South Beach. And then the interesting part of that was Bill Belichick, Mike Lombardi, North Carolina being very aggressive on their end, trying to get involved, and not only making it clear that they were going to be extremely, extremely competitive financially, but Bill tried to pull out all of the stops and use some of those old Patriots resources, including the aforementioned Tom Brady, Rob Gronkowski, Bailey Zappi, guys along those lines, to FaceTime with John Mateer and try to sell him on the idea of going to North Carolina. But ultimately, the pre-existing relationships that John Mateer had with Ben Arbuckle, John Kuzieski, who was his quarterback's coach at Washington State, and then a FaceTime call with a prominent former Sooner in Baker Mayfield, all of that contributed to John Mateer ultimately ending up at Norman, which is a huge, huge deal for Brent Venables heading into an important season.
Yeah, life comes at you fast. If you're John Mateer, all of a sudden you hit the transfer portal and make sure your phone is charged. You got some pretty important FaceTimes that you got to answer. It's pretty crazy. What I'm hearing, though, if I'm a North Carolina fan and a Miami fan, is I'm still looking for a quarterback. And so I wonder where that quarterback could come from, Matt, because there's not a whole lot of options in the transfer portal right now. So I want to just get your clarification on one thing. Looks like Arizona State and Oregon have until midnight tonight for players who want to enter the portal based on that 5-day window that opened up after their loss in the playoff. Georgia, I think, has one additional day because that game was, of course, moved an additional day. So are we expecting any last-minute big blockbuster additions from those three playoff teams?
So I feel like the head nod says it all. Yes.
Okay.
So exit meetings and all are taking place, have been taking place today. I know at the very least at one of those places, and just continued dialogue and conversations. But yes, you can 150% expect more entries from those schools in the coming days. I can say that very confidently.
Okay.
If you could go by the 150% number.
I mean, based on what we've seen in the transfer portal so far, I think the answer is always expect something else to happen because that usually is the case. We also have the final 4 teams. Once those teams eventually get eliminated, their transfer portal windows open. Any rumors or rumblings we need to be aware of with those teams?
A lot of rumors and rumblings. We can save that for off air. So not ready to throw any names out as of yet, yeah. But there are definitely players, I'll say, from the teams remaining who are going to end up in the portal and potentially some noteworthy type guys that the schools right now, even while game prepping, have been working to get locked in and keep those from a portal standpoint, and then also NFL draft decision perspective to go along with that. So that's been something that I know for even the staffs for teams that are remaining in the playoffs, those conversations are taking place right now. And that's come up on my end today. Had conversations with multiple schools still involved in the playoffs today, where I know those conversations are taking place. And again, it's a combination of not only the portal, but trying to get a feel for where some of these draft eligible players that have a shot to turn pro are leaning right now, because some of that will dictate just whether these schools pursue some available portal players that have interest in potentially transferring there.
Sure, a lot of sleep is being had by those playoff teams right now, and you're having to deal with, I don't know, the game that's ahead of you, but also keeping your roster together, potentially adding pieces. Sounds like a lot of fun, but also sounds like the moral of the story is it's not over yet. So we'll continue to check in with you, Matt Zenitz. Thank you so much. You can check out more of his work at cbssports.com, at 247sports.com. That's where we will update you on all the latest happenings